Fortnite Creative launched over 1,700 days ago, and the game has changed a lot over the years, but there are some things that only OG creators will remember. This video is inspired by CypherPK's video about things only OG Battle Royale players will remember, and since I made a little cameo in that video, it seems only fitting that I do the same for Creative. So, you're an OG, if you remember. Creative Mode was a Battle Pass exclusive during the first week of Season 7. I remember buying the Battle Pass and spending the whole night messing around with Creative instead of playing the new season. Let me know if you did the same in the comments down below. The guided missile launcher was an iconic rocket launcher that fired a huge missile the player could control. It was never added to the creative inventory, but it was possible to spawn it through chests until it was removed from the game entirely and deleted from the files with update 7.30. From Season 7 until the end of Chapter 1, each season brought a brand new creative hub made by Epic Games. Season 7's was themed around Loot Lake, Season 8's was jungle themed, Season 9's was Neo Tilted themed, and Season X's was a remake of the Season 7 version. They even had a battle bus and portals to the main Battle Royale island. In March 2019, a public beta test for a moving zone simulator was held by Donnie SC, the creator of Zone Wars. The island code is no longer active, and trying to play the map doesn't work, but this was the foundation of Zone Wars. Some devices in early Creative would display the rarity Transcendent, which is a developer rarity exclusive to some test cosmetics and these devices. This rarity is certified classic as it doesn't even exist anymore. It was replaced by Exotic in Chapter 2 Season 5. The Creative phone was originally in the player's inventory, taking up an item slot. It wasn't until the phone was reworked in Chapter 2 Season 1 that it became its own UI element like it is today. Back in 2018, if you wanted to place a prefab or gallery, it wasn't an easy direct placement with the phone like it is today. You had to throw it like a porta-fort. Thankfully, this was changed in Season 8 as it was kinda hard to line things up right. Prefabs, galleries and devices were also held in the player inventory, but were moved to a separate hotbar when the Creative phone was moved. The Battle Royale island used to be visible and loaded at all times, which many players exploited in Season X to go to the map and mess with it or grab unreleased items from it. The Battle Royale island was removed from Creative in mid-Chapter 2 for a variety of reasons, including server stability, preventing players from grabbing unreleased assets, and separating Creative more from Battle Royale. The BR Island returned in a new way as the Creative Royale template in Chapter 3 Season 4, but it still isn't visible from the Creative Island today. Channels were a system to connect devices via numbers. This system was removed in Chapter 4 when it had 500 available channels, but only OGs will remember it started with just 5 channels and had 50 by the end of Chapter 1. The Creative phone has had 2 old designs. The first is a temporary design of a hammer and a saw, which can be seen in pre-release trailers. The second is an alternate phone, which is just used in some emotes and LTM assets. The trigger device didn't even exist until Season 9, so back in the day, creators would set up a shopping cart that would activate a sequence device to act as a makeshift trigger. Spawn plates were once used for most devices, including player spawners, item spawners, and vehicles. All of these were eventually removed from the Creative inventory with just a few exceptions remaining, like the barrier and the mounted turret. And all of the devices were updated during Chapter 2 to new prop-based versions, and the old versions can now only be found in old template islands. Every template island used to have a hub rift, which if entered, would teleport players to the Creative hub. Naturally, this was quite annoying as creators had to build around it, so thankfully it was removed during Chapter 3. Some template islands still have the little area with spawn on though. There was no option to place tiles as props on launch, but one wooden wall in the Polar Peak prefab was registered as a prop instead of a tile, making it an exception to the rule until Grid Snap was added. During Season 9 it was possible, albeit not easy, to load creative maps in playground mode, which produced some strange results and was another method people used to get unreleased assets into their maps. In early versions before the ability to phase was added, some players found that there was a device inaccessible under their template islands. This is such an obscure fact that I just can't find any footage of it, but it looked like part of the Storm Shield device from Save the World, and interacting with it would just kill the player. It is assumed that what it would do is control the island settings, a function that is now handled by an invisible device that can only be seen in the Unreal editor. The Brute mech is the only vehicle to be permanently removed from creative mode due to Epic refusing to update it to the new physics system introduced in Chapter 2, and due to it having numerous issues and exploits attached to it. Strangely, the salvaged Brute was introduced in Chapter 2 Season 8, using the new physics system, but it has never been added into creative. Before the score manager device, there was instead this strange device with mini launch pads attached, which the player had to bounce on to manually increase their score. It's still in the creative inventory and acts as a relic of more primitive times. There was also the trick tile device, which removes the tile after the player stands on it. Much like the scoreboard, it has been largely replaced by the prop manipulator. Creative had a crazy content drought during early Chapter 2, while almost no items, devices, or galleries were added from Chapter 2 Season 2 until Chapter 2 Season 5. In fact, not a single device was added to Creative for 10 months. It was a dark age for OG creators. In early Creative, flying was slow due to the maps being pretty small, with only one flight speed. More options were eventually added in Chapter 2 and 3, allowing the fly speed to go as high as 10 times the default and as low as 10% of the default speed. The Storm device was added in Season 9. It was super basic and gave limited control over the Storm, but was replaced in Season X by the much more in-depth, basic, and advanced Storm controllers and beacons. Not many creators remember the old Storm device, as it was only in the game for about 8 weeks. Creative doesn't often get exclusive items, and when it does, they are usually either resources or item versions of devices. But in Season X, the unique flashlight, torch, and flashlight pistol were added. These items, especially the pistol, are very unique and have never been seen in Battle Royale or Save the World. Scissors Death Run was the first creative map to explode in popularity, with content creators, streamers, and pro players playing it and hosting competitions. This popularity eventually faded, and Scissors Death Run saw its final release, 4.0, in July 2019. The once iconic map series has since faded into the memories of those who played it. The Storm glitch plagued creators, particularly in Chapter 2 and Chapter 3. The Storm was used to reset the server every 4 hours in Playground and Creative, but there was a glitch where the Storm would start to close in after just 20 minutes to an hour into the match. And at one point in Chapter 3, there was a 50-50 even split chance of this occurring. I remember this used to drive me crazy. Every so often, Epic used to add creative exclusive prefabs and galleries. They'd only happen very occasionally, but they were always a nice gift. The most notable are the parkour sets on launch, the military bases in Season 8, the haunted houses in Chapter 2 Season 1, the princess castles in Chapter 2 Season 4, the spooky mansion in Chapter 2 Season 7, and most recently the deserted fortress in Chapter 3 Season 3. OG creators rejoiced in version 15.10, which I like to refer to as the Great Prefab Patch, as this update not only added a bunch of missing items like the charged shotgun, but also added a large number of missing Battle Royale additions, including the motel, the desert racetrack, the taco stores from Retail Row and Greasy Grove, and the agency. And the following updates added even more, including Lazy Links and Hexylvania from Save the World. Back in Chapter 2 Season 6, there was a huge weekend where Marvel Mythics were somehow hacked into creative mode. Some players used this to privately use the Nexus War Mythics and fight their friends, but the craziest thing is when Thanos showed up in Team Power's Tiny Town map and wreaked havoc for the weekend. It was truly a really wild weekend for creative. Back in Chapter 2, pretty much every community-made creative hub had some secret story quests to complete. Some YouTube channels popped up and thrived off of showing players how to complete these quests. But with how often the hub rotated, and with there being no tangible rewards beyond bragging rights, players eventually got bored and forgot about these quests, and creators eventually stopped adding them into their hubs entirely. Pretty much everyone remembers this, but I just can't miss it out. Of course, there was the block, where creators' builds would replace Risky Reels and later the motel on the Battle Royale map. It was a really cool way for Epic to show off and support community builders, and really kickstarted the creative builder community, and I just really hope this comes back in the future. Creative has had a crazy evolution over the years, and as someone who started on day one, it's really weird to remember all of this stuff, from the obvious things to the super obscure. Let me know what you guys remember, and if I missed anything down below, and Epic Games, please free my man the Brute.